Okay, we are live on YouTube, and also I just let Jackie in,
Okay, hello, everybody's in then?
and I believe Eileen is trying to get in now.
Oh, should I start or you want me to wait for you to let her in?
You could probably start.
Okay, I'm just going to call for a motion in a second to call the meeting of the Connecticut Board of Education to order.
Motion.
I need a motion in a second. A second.
Second, Jackie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. I'd like to see if we can get a Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd be so happy to do that, Jesse.
Absolutely. I
Thanks,
pledge
Jess.
allegiance. Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, a moment of silence to honor the men of our service and women. And a roll call, Jess? With the district clerk, please.
Yes. We have Mr. Mark Washaw,
Here.
Mrs. Mylan Augulus,
Present.
Miss Lee Kennedy,
Present.
Miss Jacqueline Napolitano-Ferno,
Present.
Dr. Linda Adams,
Present.
Mr. Middleman,
Present.
Miss Villarreal, present, Mr. Kohler-Hefar,
Present.
and myself, Jessie Kemp, the district clerk.
Do you want to do the changes to the meeting agenda? Is Eileen back yet, or? Jess?
I just resent her the link, so she should be here within the next few minutes. If you want to just
All right.
call that, and
I'll
then
tell you the
we
changes.
can dive into the
I'll tell you the
audit.
change. Yeah.
Okay.
If we can just have changes to the meeting, Jenny, if you can pull appointment for the separate vote state during the agenda, item D, pull item 3A from the personal schedule 1 and item 1A from the personal schedule 2 for a separate vote, if that could be done, please.
Say that again, Mark.
Yeah. I'll put that again as well. Mark, you're pulling
Pull
two?
pull item 3A from personnel schedule 1 and item 1A from personal schedule 2 for a separate vote. I believe that's what I was supposed to do, correct, Jesse?
Yes, that's what you asked for. It's the two appointments he's referring to. One is from it's a leave of absence, and then the second one from the personnel schedule 2 is the appointment. So they're connected. So just pulling them both for a separate vote at the request of a board member.
Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm trying to log in with the iPad, so just give me a second.
All right, Eileen, you'll take over. You're here. We're up to the agenda, just so you know. If that's your voice, I think that was you.
The agenda.
We're up to accepting the minutes for the October 13th Board of Education meeting, Eileen.
Okay. So Mark already did that for the minutes?
No, he did not. That's where you would start.
Okay. Hold on, I gotta find the page. Need a motion and a second to accept the minutes from October 13th, 2020 Board of Education meeting.
Motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? A second.
Aye.
To accept the
Aye.
Aye.
The next is I need a motion to suspend the planning session to do the audit committee meeting. I need a motion and a
Motion.
Second.
Second.
favor.
Aye.
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 Oh, no, I do not have the audit at all. I did not get an email. I just got in, so I did not check the emails. So I'm going to abstain on any voting for this tonight. Jill, you are up.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
There's some way, Jill, it's not your fault.
Okay. All right, thank you for inviting me. And so this evening.
Wait. I just have one question. Jesse, did you send the audit report?
I believe Miss Villarreal sent it either late yesterday or early this morning.
My apologies. My apologies. I must have missed it.
Can you let me in the meeting through my iPad?
Yes, once I see you pop in, I'll let you in.
Did it? It didn't do it?
No.
Hold on, let me see if it goes now. Okay, Jill, you're up while Jesse and I will do this on the side. Thank you.
Okay, so we concluded the audit, and some of the audit conclusion was based upon the Board of Education meeting that you conducted, whereby you resolved to go ahead and fund additional amounts towards the 2021 budget and to establish your reserves as of June 30th. So those actions are in this communication, in this financial statement. And so the document itself, as far as the financial statement audit document, is laid out the same as last year. It has an unmodified opinion. So we believe the financial statements fairly present as of June 30th and for the year then ended 2020. And the same funds we're reporting on as in the previous year: the capital project fund, the debt service fund, general fund, school food service fund, and the special aid fund. And so the document is quite lengthy, as the board knows from previous years. The document starts off with management's discussion and analysis. There are some financial highlights in there. And so just to kind of bring some highlights to the board's attention for reading, on page 3, when you get the opportunity, there's a discussion about the authorization for the spending for capital projects and the fact that it will be funded through capital reserves. $9,690,000 in round numbers is going to be used from the capital reserves to offset the borrowing for the total projects that will take place in the approximate amount of $45,758,000. And this, in this year's financial statement, you will see a transfer from the general fund to the capital project fund for that amount of the capital reserve money that had already been accumulated through previous year's budgets. The financial statement talks about the tax levy and the tax cap. And as we remember, for 2020, the levy was 2.9%. The cap was 4.63%. And after those highlights, there's a discussion of, as a reminder to the Board of Education, there's 2 financial statements that are ways that the financial statements are presented. One is on the accrual basis. It includes capital assets and long-term debt. It's not the way that the school district maintains their books and records, but under GASB 34, we're required to present that to the Board of Education and to the public. And then there's the modified accrual basis, which is the way the school district maintains their books and records. And that's probably the more pertinent part of the financial statement that I think you want to focus on. So when you get your financial statement document, you might want to direct your attention to page 19, which is the balance sheet, and page 21, which is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And so on the balance sheet, you have by fund, you have general fund assets, you have liabilities, and then we remember that the difference between the assets and the liabilities and those unavailable revenues are what's known as fund balance. And so the school district has fund balance. You have unassigned fund balance. You have that portion of fund balance that you use to appropriate to the next year's budget. So you're not raising taxes for that portion. And then you have the reserves. And the district has been using those reserves as part of the funding source for their budgets. And just, by way of comparison, when you look at the amount of the reserves that are funded for the 2021 budget, it's $6,340,000. The year before it was $4,705,000. You have been increasing the amount that you're using of the reserves, and that's the reason why they're established, to be able to offset the spending in the subsequent year's budget, or for those emergencies such as individuals separate from the school district and I need to pay them out whatever time bank they're entitled to get paid out according to the bargaining agreement or salary agreement in place. And then I utilize what's known as the employee benefit accrued liability reserve. So you have, as a school district, been actively funding the reserves when you do have surplus at the end, operating surplus at the end of the year, but at the same time, utilizing those, okay? And so between the reserves and the appropriated fund balance, on the bottom part of the schedule that you'll look at for the balance sheet on page 19, you'll see that there's a combination of $9.9 million, almost $10 million of the district's own funding that was used to support the subsequent year's budget. By way of comparison, the number that was used to support this 2020 budget that I'm reporting on, or those financial results, was about $7.9 million. So that's an increase, as we know, about $2 million, almost $3 million. And so the other funds that are reported on the balance sheet after the general fund is a special aid fund. We know that that's expenditure driven, so it has no fund balance. The food service fund, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, experienced a fairly large loss. When you look at the loss is predominantly in the amount of food sales. And as you can imagine, because you're not selling food, and you're not serving food to individuals who qualify for free and reduced lunch, the federal and state reimbursement is quite reduced from the previous years. So those were the two, the generators for the larger loss than the previous year. And to the extent that there's a loss, you've budgeted for a portion of that loss during the year because you provide for a transfer from your operating budget. To the extent that that transfer didn't take care of the whole operating loss, you may want to consider, as a Board of Education, providing for a transfer by resolution for the portion of the operating loss that has not been funded. And that portion of the operating loss that has not been funded at this point, in round numbers, is about $400,000, okay? The debt service fund, you're utilizing that obviously to pay whatever long-term debt you have. And then the capital project fund. And there is quite a bit of activity in the capital project fund. When you get the opportunity, you may look back at the schedules, the other supplementary information, which is on pages 62 and 63. And so on those 2 pages, project by project, there's a row that shows what's been budgeted, what's been expended, what the prior year expenditures are, current aggregate expenditures year to date, what the funding source and amount was, and then what's available to be spent. And obviously, in looking at that schedule, the largest portion of what you will see as far as funding, which the debt has not yet been issued, would be the authorized spending that you have for the $45 million in round numbers of funding for capital projects, which is bond and capital reserve transfer sourced, okay? And so those 2 pages are probably the most important part of the financial statement. There are schedules that reconcile the accrual basis financial statement to the modified accrual basis financial statement. Within management's discussion and analysis, there are a couple of new areas that I just wanted to bring to your attention. On page 11, when you get the opportunity, under item A, there's a reconciliation of each of the components of the reserves. And the schedule starts out with the ending balance as of June 30th, 2019. What has been appropriated for the reserves as part of the budget process, what was used as far as the funding for the capital project fund, the interest that's been earned, and then the additional funding that the Board of Education has decided to use to replenish those amounts that have been used through the budget process before the conclusion of June 30th, 2020 financial statements, and then what the ending balance is and what's been appropriated for the subsequent year. So that's a new schedule on page 11. And at the top of page 12, within the capital reserve, there are 2 reserves in the capital project fund. And there's a schedule within the capital project fund, there are 2 reserves, 2 capital reserves. And there's a schedule at the top of page 12 that goes through what has been utilized for the reserves and what funding is left with respect to each of the reserves. There's also in the financial statement at the bottom of page 53, a capital reserve schedule that reconciles the funding since inception, what's been spent, and you'll see when you look at that schedule, there's approximately $4.6 million of the $9.5 million that's available as a funding source for expenditures. So those are the new parts of the financial statement. As you know, the district ended up in a positive financial position, and this was quite an unusual year. With the closure of school, the expenditures were not what you would typically expect to see. And so as a result of that, there was a generation of operating surplus. That, coupled with the fact that the school district received more state aid than had been anticipated, put you in a situation that you had more than the 4% of fund balance, and you identified, at an early stage, what the unanticipated expenditures, health, safety, and educational purposes related to COVID-19 were. You made or passed a resolution as a Board of Education to earmark out of the unassigned fund balance those dollars that were not in the original 2021 budget, because obviously back in June, no one really knew the extent of what these expenditures were going to be. And so to the extent that this financial statement shows that you have more than the 4% in the unassigned fund balance, if you take away that portion that's been resolved by the Board of Education to add to the 2021 budget, you will be within the 4%, okay? So that's clear on the financial statement too. So that's pretty much the financial highlights of the financial statement. Were there any questions on the financial statement itself?
Again, I didn't see it, Jill, so I'll have questions tomorrow.
Okay. If you want to direct your questions through the business office to me, I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Helping the situation.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
Okay. There were 3 other documents that should have been provided. One was the extra classroom activity report, cash basis. And this is for each club and activity, what has been collected and dispersed. And obviously the dollar levels of spending and collection are much lower than the previous year. So you will see that when you will look at that. And to the extent that some of the clubs might have had large balances, like stage band, for example, there had been monies collected for a trip, which were refunded. And so we don't net whatever's collected with whatever's reimbursed. And you will see that as you go down the line or row of each of the clubs and activities, that particular club has a fairly large balance for that particular reason. We had looked at that on audit. We have a communication to the Board of Education that starts out with, we have audited.
Well, nuts.
I'm sorry?
That they're not getting what they want? That they know the politics?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Jill.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. On the AUC document, we have audited. So if there are any difficulties in performing the audit, if the audit wasn't performed in accordance with the standards, generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and the uniform guidance, we will conclude the single audit work during the first quarter of 2021. As we know, that report is due to the Federal Single Audit Clearinghouse March 31st, 2021. So that's where the uniform guidance comes in. So if there's any exceptions to the application of those standards, it would be noted in this document. There are no exceptions. There were no exceptions as far as or difficulties encountered in performing the audit, other than the obvious logistics of getting the information because of the pandemic. But that all worked out well. We proposed a number of journal entries. They're attached to the document. You could look at them for your reference and ask any questions when you have the chance to look at that at some point. And then we issued also our management letter. And so there were 5 comments from the previous year. With respect to those 5 comments, 2 have been completed, 3 are still in progress, okay? And the ones that are in progress have to do with within the computer control area, reviewing the permissions that are granted to employees for the WinCap program, I'm sorry, for Envision, to make sure that they're removed for people who no longer have responsibility to work within that area. There are a couple of individuals who still had access permissions. The other comments had to do with sizing the transfer for the food service fund because it had a deficit. And I discussed that with you. The thing that the board may want to consider is a transfer for the remaining amount of the deficit over and above what had been transferred through the budget process. And then the reduction of interfund receivables and payables. And these arise, for example, in the special aid fund, because you're spending and then you're asking the state to reimburse you for those expenditures. You're basically borrowing from the general fund at the time when you receive your money from the state, you being the special aid fund, for those program reimbursements. Those funds should be returned to the general fund. So those are the three that are open from the previous year. We had two comments for this year. One had to do with old outstanding checks for bank reconciliations that we audited. And so we're suggesting that the checks that are a year or older, they be resolved as to whether or not they need to be reissued. Individuals should be contacted to see whether or not they receive the original check and whether or not reissued checks have to take place, or if those funds have to go to the state to be claimed at some point. And then the other comment had to do with the payroll certification. And this had to do with the change in the staffing during the year. So the board had passed a resolution that the payroll certifications that are typically signed off on by the superintendent of schools and or the interim or assistant superintendent for business and operations and or the school district treasurer, that any one of those individuals had the authority to sign the payroll certification. But as the auditor, the practice really should not be that I, who are involved in the execution of checks, which would be the treasurer, should be someone who's certifying the payroll. So I bring that comment to your attention for your consideration. So those are the two new comments for this year. There are no material weaknesses. There are no significant deficiencies. And just as a reminder, within the internal control structure, there are good checks and balances. If there were not good checks and balances, if there was an internal control structure that had a break that might lead to fraud or defalcation or misrepresentation of financial information, that would be communicated to you in writing, and that's what's considered a material weakness or a significant deficiencies. Internal control related matters that are of a lower level that require board attention, but do not require a response in the form of a corrective action plan per se, are communicated in this management letter to you. So that's my board report for this evening. I don't know if there are any questions.
So are there any areas of concern or that we need to pay more significant attention to?
I think the concern is really what's going to happen with state aid reductions this year, whether or not that 20% is going to be something that's going to be permanent. You know, there was a holdback for the June payment on this financial statement. It's detailed as unavailable revenues. You know, if there's a continuation for a holdback, you know, that's a significant amount of money on your budget. Fortunately, you have the unassigned fund balance and you have some reserves which could be used for the purpose for which they were intended. I think that's really the big concern, the financial impact of, you know, the extended financial impact of the pandemic expenditures and what the state may be doing if federal funding is withheld from them, or if they determine that they need to not pass through as much funding as they had anticipated to school districts and other local governments.
So just looking forward, and again, this is all hypothetical because this all relies on what the state aid number is going to be. But just say we play with the number of the 20% reduction in state aid. And correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like we might be okay for this year. It's going to be a very tight budget and maybe some minor cuts here and there. But if this continues to happen, we are looking to make some significant changes. Would be something is my guess.
That's a fair statement. I even wonder about this year, honestly, because your state aid is about 55 million. I'm just going to round the numbers, okay? So 20%, 20% of that, is 10 million, $11 million, right? And your unassigned fund balance right now, once you take the portion out that was earmarked for COVID, brings it down to about $8 million. I'm just rounding numbers, okay? So you would not even have enough unassigned fund balance to take care of the full 20% state aid cut, because you have quite a bit of state aid that funds your budget.
So again, that's truly is my concern. So is there something that we should be proactive about?
Mhm.
Can you
I
give
think-
some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you need to really, and I know the district is doing this. I know the superintendent is doing this and your business official is doing this. I think you need to be really holding the line on the budget until you get a better sense as to, and obviously you can't do that if you want to bring the students back into school. There's additional expenditures, but to the extent that there may have been some discretionary spending items in the original budget, those are held, or those are, off the table for the time being until you get a better sense. And then to the extent that you have individuals who decide they want to separate, retire, and they have balances due to them for time that's been earned, I think you should look at immediately appropriating out of the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, whatever funding you have in place to cover those expenditures. Because I don't know if your budget's going to have enough room anywhere else to transfer from another code to cover that on a temporary basis. So those would be the things that I would be suggesting. And you're right, no one has that crystal ball. We really don't know what happens. Hopefully the holdback, is something that, will not transpire to the extent that it's been discussed, but you don't know.
So again, I'm sure you know that the other variable to this is that we spent about $4 million on our school opening, which again is not, a normal cost. It's an additional cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I do worry about that having a significant impact long term and something that we won't be able to sustain.
Okay. So, I think there's appropriation status reports that show budget to actual figures. I know the business office and your superintendent look at these. I think these are something that needs to be looked at as they are periodically and shared. And I think fund balance forecast is going to be important. And so typically that starts sometime towards the tail end of January. It's something that you really want to get a sense at that time, because there'll be, 4 months of school under, 5 months of school under your belt. And you want to really see, what does it look like code by code? We might have left over, or where are we going to be short? And then I think there's going to be some difficult decisions that all school districts are going to need to make, not just you, as to how to continue.
And I guess that's another reason why we have some hesitation on how to, I would say, conservatively fund these reserves. I'd rather weigh on the side of conservative, because again, we can't foresee what the state aid is going to look like in the next few months or maybe year.
Correct. And I think, to your credit, you have reserves in places where you can appropriate them. If you look at workers' comp, you have that expenditure every year. Okay, so you can continue to appropriate that. The 2 retirement system reserves, you have those expenditures every year. So you can continue to appropriate those. And like I said before, the EBLR, the Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, there will be people that will be separating from the district. Utilize that. You've been utilizing it through the budget, and to the extent that there's additional spending that's required, utilize it. This is where you've worked hard to accumulate some funding in those reserves out of budgetary savings, that it will come in, it will come in handy to be able to support the spending. Okay. Obviously, you can't overspend the budget, so that's a different story, right? Unless the Board of Education decides to appropriate additional funding out of unassigned. But to the extent that you have these extra expenditures over and above what had been anticipated, and there is a reserve in place to go ahead under general municipal law and pay for those costs, then you want to utilize those to the extent that you can.
So can you just repeat for me which reserves that we should fund at this point, and maybe not think about funding the other ones until we know where we are financially?
Well, I think I would not make any decision to fund any reserves until the end of the year, okay? I think right now where you are, you have a workers' compensation reserve, okay? But of that workers' compensation reserve for the 2021 budget, you already pulled out $1.4 million, and that's up from the previous year. You have an unemployment reserve, and of that unemployment reserve, you've already appropriated for the 2021 budget, $90,000. So that cuts the reserve in half. That was one of the smaller reserves. You have a teacher's retirement reserve. The most that you could fund is 2% a year. So whatever you funded, you're up to 4% because it's a 2-year-old reserve. That's when general municipal law put the reserve in place. And you've already appropriated half of that towards the 2021 budget, and you will use that. You have an employees retirement system reserve, and you've appropriated $2.9 million out of that to fund for your 2021 budget. And you have the EBLAR, which is for compensated absences, which you already funded $500,000. And so those are the combination of the reserves that you used to come up with a total funding of $6,340,000 in round numbers.
So that was, Jill, was that at the last meeting when I had you there that we did that?
Yes. So this, you're right. So this,
More.
no. This was, I'm sorry, let me back up. No, this was part of the budget process. So when you looked at what you were going to levy, you said, this is what our budget is. Our budget's $199 million. We're going to take assigned fund balance, which is out of the unassigned piece of $3.6 million. And then on top of that, we're going to take $6,340,131 out of our reserves, okay?
Almost $1 million, right?
So that's almost, right. So that's almost $10 million. The funding that you put in place per the resolution at last week's meeting is already included in the numbers on this financial statement.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing things up, but
Jill, I didn't read the report yet. I just heard Mylene asking you the question, so I just want to clarify. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just want to go back to something that you said that I believe was very vital, is to actually have a very important conversation starting in January.
Yes.
With Bridget, and she to get some idea at that point where we look and to also consider what the projections are.
Absolutely. This is really a critical year to be doing that. And that's been done by the district, but this is, where you really are going to have to sharpen your pencil, I think, in January to see what is not going to be able to be spent that you thought you might be able to.
And I guess also too, we're going to be having a different conversation when we talk about our planning for the next budget. This is going to be a significant topic, and one that we have to, like you mentioned, that we're going to have to be a little bit more sharper on our expenses.
Yeah, right. Because if you think about it, you're appropriating out of your unassigned fund balance $3.6 million, right? That's what last year's number was. Okay. So if you want to recreate that, okay, and retain your 4%, you have to be able to, obviously, I'm stating the obvious, either not spend that part of your budget or recognize more revenue than what you had anticipated. Okay. And so you'll have to see, as you start to forecast the fund balance, is that viable? Are we going to be able to do that? And if we're not going to be able to do that, how much more do we need to appropriate out of our reserves, right? So that we're within the tax cap.
So I was looking at the appropriation status from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, which is a complete fiscal cycle. Mm-hmm. And at the at the bottom, it says that we have 4.6 million roughly that was not spent in the budget. Bridget, does that mean that the books are closed? Is that close to what the accurate number is?
Yes, and this is all reflective in the reports from Jill.
Great, thank you. So that 4.6 is going to be taken and put back to unassigned.
That would already have been closed out into the numbers that you would be looking at in the financial statement. So that includes my unassigned fund balance of number of the $11 million number, okay? Includes all that unspent budget dollars, okay?
Oh, so it
and-
included the 4.6. Okay, I just wanted to
Correct.
verify that.
Yeah, so it's not on top of that, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, I just want to verify that. Thank you. My questions are, thank you for answering my questions.
Oh, you're welcome.
Does the board have any other questions?
No, again, I didn't read the report, so I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow, and Jill, I will email them to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Good, you answered all questions Marlon had asked for me. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you for inviting me this
Thank you
evening.
very much.
Bye-bye now.
So at this time, I need a motion and a second to suspend the audit committee meeting.
No,
And-
I'm sorry, Eileen, you need to vote to accept the audit report.
Oh, I need a motion and a second to accept the audit committee, the audit report.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I abstain, Jackie. Jesse, I'm sorry.
Okay, now you can adjourn the audit committee
I
meeting.
need
Eileen.
a motion and a second to adjourn the audit meeting.
Motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The next thing is I need a motion and a second for the financial matters, and then any discussion.
There's actually 2 discussion items, Eileen. I don't know if you have the up.
Well,
the-
I don't know if I have the updated one, so.
Okay, so the first discussion is the facilities use.
Okay, so again, Linda, I'm gonna ask that we do this done before and put the discussion at the end and do the business first. Are there any of these discussions that are on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, so if the board will allow me to do that, I would like to put the discussion at the end so that we can get the business of the board done first.
Sounds good.
I need a third.
I'm good with that. You got me.
Thank, that's 3. So the next is the financial matters. I need a motion and a second to approve the financial matters, the appropriation status report, the financial, yeah, that's it.
I do have a few questions. Maybe Bridget, I'll be better off just emailing them to you. But from a quick look, I saw that some of the numbers are maxed out. So say, for example, you budgeted $500, you're exactly spent $500. And I saw that on some of the higher end budget lines that it was spent to the penny. So, but I will email it to you because it's quite extensive and I don't want to take any more of the board's time. The other question I have is that I noticed that the Board of Education travel was maxed out. I don't recall that the Board of Education traveling anywhere, and that expense was 12,500.
I thought they took that, I thought they cut that in half.
It was cut, but
They are
the budget,
short-
it was
short
budgeted for
successfully.
12,500 and it was expense at 12,500. So I want to know how that money was spent because I don't recall the board
No
traveling
one
anywhere.
traveled. No one traveled, and the only reason that was cut was because Lee Kennedy cut it on her own without 3 votes. So that's amazing to me too. So
But that's not my question. My question is,
So-
it was budgeted for 12,500 and it was expense at 12,500. And honestly, I don't recall the board traveling anywhere.
no, none traveled. So that should not be expensed. So where was that money transferred to? You're right, Mylene. Good.
So Bridget, that
Sure, I will
question's for you.
Sure. I am trying to run it in Envision, but it's saying that Envision is not responding. This is for closure through June 30th, 2020. So as soon as I receive that report up, I will email it to the board to show you exactly where that went.
Okay, and any questions that I ask via email, you will put it on a Google Doc so that the community can see whatever questions that I have answered by you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, can you, the question that Mylin just asked, can you send an email to the board too, with the answer for that one? I'd like to see the answer right on with an email to me, if that's possible.
Yes, the entire board will receive.
Thank you.
Jesse, Jesse, I know that you're going to be sending the board the audit report. Can you also throw in there a hard copy of the appropriation status to me as well, so that I can look through it on paper? Just a little easier for me to make my notes.
Yes, so the two financial items.
Correct.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Is that all the questions for that section?
I'm good.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept and a second to accept the recommended action for the financial matters.
I'm going to
Motion.
abstain. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
I'm going to abstain because I did not look at it yet. The next is we're pulling something, right? Why are we pulling? Oh, no.
Wait, Eileen, you got, so did you get your 3 yeses and 2 abstentions on that one?
Jess?
The only
Or-
person I didn't hear was Lee.
What?
Lee, were you a yes or abstaining for the financial matters?
I was a yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I believe Jackie and Mark were both yeses as well.
Correct.
Okay, and Mylin and I abstain.
Yes, as long as we're gonna find out where that money went. That was the same question I had circled over here for the Board of Ed, because we
wanna
didn't travel
table
anywhere, nothing went.
We should table that then until we get the answer.
If you don't mind tabling it, then this
I'll
way,
make a motion to table it. Mylin, you'll second?
yeah,
And I'll
second
be
it.
the
And
third.
if you,
Okay.
and if
so
you
we'll
don't mind
table-
tabling it, and again, if Jackie, if you can send everyone that, because I think we may have some questions on that particular piece. I don't have any questions regarding the revenue status. It's the appropriation, so maybe send everybody a hard copy of the appropriations. And then this way, maybe we can just put questions together for you and you can answer at the next board meeting.
Okay, I'll send hard copies home.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, so we're tabling that. The next is the recommended action personnel matter, resignations, terminations, leaves of absences. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the personnel matters? Schedule 1.
No,
I believe Mark tabled an item on that, on that.
Schedule 1. Schedule
for
1.
separate vote.
Schedule 1, please. Schedule 1.
Mark tabled something. No, Mark took for a seperate vote
No, that's on
on
schedule 2. This
on
is
that.
Schedule 1. Schedule
Schedule
1.
1 and Schedule 2.
Schedule 1 is resignations, terminations, and leaves of absences.
Correct.
What's tabled on that? I don't
Mark-
hear.
1A.
No, 1A is not, that's a resignation.
That's
Mr.
right.
Washington- Mr.
Separate
Washington
vote.
asked to table 3A from Schedule 1 and from Schedule 2, not table, excuse me. He asked to pull for a separate vote from Schedule 1, 3A, and from Schedule 2, 1A.
3A?
3A and 1A. That's
Yeah.
what he asked to pull for a separate vote.
Okay.
Wait, you're gonna have to tell me what it is, because for some reason on my board docs, it's not coming up. Oh, wait, never mind. Schedule 1, yes. 3A.
Jesse,
yes.
you know what it was. it the correct
Yes.
one that I wanted?
Schedule 1, 3A, yes, for separate
Yeah.
vote.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what this is about, so I'm gonna abstain from that vote. 3As. No, this is not right. That I have
It
the wrong.
is.
Let me look on the other screen.
I don't think you guys are looking at the right thing.
No, I don't think I am
Because Schedule A, you're saying Schedule 1, executive content, 3A, is that what you guys are looking at?
no, I'm looking at recommendations, Schedule 1 on the Board of Ed. Why is this coming up?
So the hard copies that you guys are looking at that I sent home on Friday
That's fine. That's
does
fine.
not have the Schedule 1 3A and the Schedule 2
I got
1A
it.
because that
Don't
was
have-
decided after the meeting yesterday. So
Okay.
they were added to board docs yesterday.
Eileen, pay close attention to what you're Eileen, pay close attention to what you're
What you're
abstaining
saying
on.
to Eileen, Riley will get very upset.
Hey, I'm speaking for 1 minute. After Friday at 5 p.m., there should be no additions or changes to the agenda unless all board members, we have a consensus to do so. This is getting ridiculous that on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we have changes when we have the meeting at 7. I am not on my email 24 hours a day. So I have a problem with this. So now I'm looking.
This was decided by the board on Monday during the emergency meeting.
3A on my.
Linda, the problem is,
Payments on the
we now
computer.
are tabling something that I'm looking at on my paperwork, and it's an instructional, it's not what everybody else is thinking.
No, you're right,
So-
Jack. You have to go on the computer to see the updated copy because we didn't get it because they added it at the last minute once again.
We don't need to fight right now. Let's just get past it and move on, please.
Okay, can we just have,
That's
Jesse, can you please email us right now that actual
Yeah.
page? And in the future, we cannot do this. This is not how we have to run the meeting, because again, I went through all these paperwork. I make notes. That's why I like the hard copies.
Correct,
And,
Jack.
and I'm over here gonna, we're saying you have us voting on things that are not the right numbers, because the numbers on my paperwork for this reasoning is not what it's supposed to be. So I don't want to say we're all going to abstain to something we don't even know what we're voting on. That's really an unprofessional way to do things.
In Jesse's defense, we did have this conversation yesterday. So the agenda did change a little bit today, but I believe that Jesse
I
probably
wasn't
should
part of
have.
any conversation yesterday, was I?
Of course. Lee, really?
Was it yesterday?
So anyway,
Oh, executive session? Oh, yeah.
so Jesse, in the future, we did have a change to the recommended action. So in the future, if you can just alert the board to let them know that the resignations or the appointments were changed, and just make sure that they're fully aware of that change. It's not something you did, it's just an oversight that you should have updated the board when you sent the paper, that was an update as of yesterday.
No, we shouldn't spend money on board docs. We should all go back to paper if we're not going to use it. It costs a lot of money for board docs.
On the next note, let's keep moving on.
Just so you guys know, I just emailed you the updated schedules that again was
Yes, I see it
updated
online
yesterday.
Thank you, Jesse. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, which again is based off the conversation that from the meeting yesterday. So
Right.
it just states what the meeting decided.
Okay. So we're pulling that for a separate vote. 3A. Everything else, I need a motion and a second to accept 3B through, I don't know now because the letters are all different. 3 through 5.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Separate vote for 3A. I need a motion and a second to accept 3A.
Eileen, I'm gonna stop you for a second. I think you should go to the Schedule 2, where you appoint someone before you decide whether you're going to accept their leave of absence. So
Okay.
it would probably behoove you to go and do Schedule 2 before you go back and go to,
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Schedule 2, we're gonna, let me get to Schedule 2. We are going to pull, no, we're not. We're not pulling Schedule 2, right?
Yes, you are.
All right,
Yeah, Mark asked her to be pulled.
all right, we're gonna pull Schedule 2. I need a motion to accept and a second to discuss Schedule 2, appointment tenure salary changes.
the only thing that was asked to be pulled was 1A. All the rest of it was okay.
So 2 through, hold on, I gotta scroll. My paperwork's not proper. 2 through 5D.
Yeah,
Motion,
as amended.
I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion,
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
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 I, Schedule 2, I need to do a separate vote for, hold on, scrolling back up.
1A.
1A. Motion,
Second.
all
A
in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Well, not in favor? No, I'm not in favor.
First of all, Lee,
What?
what? All in favor, I only heard myself. All in favor,
Aye,
Aye.
Jackie.
Aye,
Mylan?
Mylan.
okay. Lee
Yes, not in favor. No,
and Mark, you're abstaining.
no, Mark's saying
Yes,
no.
Oh, no,
No,
he said,
I'm abstaining.
okay, so Jesse, we have 3
I
all
haven't seen anything
One
out of it.
abstain. Correct?
Yes, that is what I have.
Thank you. Next, we go back to Schedule 1, and we will go to 1A,
Eileen, it's 3A.
3A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mylene, Jackie, and Lee.
Aye.
No, I didn't, no, I said no, not Lee. I'm not in favor.
I'm
I'm a no.
abstaining.
I'm an
Okay,
aye. I'm a yes.
Jackie's an aye. Jackie's a yes.
Hey, Lee, we got you. Thank you. We got
Thank you.
Mylene, we're waiting for you.
Mylan is a yes.
Okay, so that's all done. Motion passed. Next is the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Discussion first. I'll motion.
Second.
Jackie and Jackie.
Okay. Any discussion? No one has any discussion?
Nope.
I'm actually, just give me a second.
I wanted to bring up the recognitions. Linda, are you
Yeah,
going to be going over
yeah.
that?
You and Mylene are going to do that on Friday in person, but I would like,
Yes.
I would like Linda to read the recognition paper and explain why we're doing that on Friday, please.
I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. I think, Jesse, do you have it?
So then, I actually do.
I have them. Can I turn it around? Linda, can I turn it around and show the screen or no?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you what happened, but I don't have the recognitions in front of me.
No, that's
I don't
okay.
have the actual certificates in front of me.
I actually have the recognition and I have my camera on. So this is one. It's for Mr. Dave. And then there's one for Mr. Mike.
So what happened earlier this October was there was actually a dog that was being walked around near the Cherokee Elementary School, and 2 of our well-beloved security guards, Mr. Mike and Mr. Dave, actually helped try to resuscitate a resident's dog. He went into cardiac arrest, and they both actually tried to rescue breathe. So it was just one of those things that just make us recognize that we have such special, and where the community is blessed by having such special employees. So the board wanted to recognize that they jumped in to try to rescue breathe and save a dog that went into cardiac arrest. So congratulations to Mr. Dave and Mr. Mike for being that special and trying to help one of our community residents save their beloved animal.
I have to tell you, I mean, it may sound a little bit biased, but I love Mr. Mike. He's been a staple in his community as long as I've been here. He's obviously lived here a lot longer than I have. And, you know, when I heard about this, I actually had called him and, you know, I talked about it with him. And as someone who has also lost a dog very young, you know, it definitely impacts, but he jumped right into action. He did everything that he could to save this poor animal. And as being an animal lover that he is, you know, it has an impact. And I'm truly appreciative for Mr. Dave and Mr. Mike to take immediate action. And I understand that, you know, the family was very distraught over this, and both were very kind and did the best they could. So I appreciate their efforts and their also attention to the family in this situation.
And I'd like to say thank you as well. They're both exceptional men in our security. They're exceptional guys. We thank you. I know that the people involved put something on social media to thank them, and I know it was forwarded along the lines. It's just that they just know when to get into action, and they're always right there to take care of the kids, to talk to the kids, to always look out for even pets. This is how much they make our community so much better, having people like them. I'm so glad that we're going to be giving them an award each and recognition. You guys deserve it.
I just want to say I don't know them, but I think it's awesome because I'm a dog lover. So I think giving a dog CPR is above and beyond. Thank you so much. I appreciate them. All right. Questions on the rest of the consent agenda? That will be done on Friday. Jackie, you and Mylin will go to present them their certificates.
Yes, it would be an honor to go there
Yes.
and to deliver it.
I will arrange that time for them to be there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely an honor. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a couple questions. The high school music trip, why are we approving that if we don't know if we're even allowed to have trips?
This is 2022.
Oh, okay.
So it's way in the future. And they're trying to actually capitalize on the low fares and everything right now. So by putting this on right now, they can actually capitalize on that.
Okay. The high school sign, I had a question about that the last time it was brought up. There is lights that they want to have put up on there. Who's paying for that? There was a couple of things that we had questions on. John, you were supposed to get back to me. John Allen, I haven't heard anything, and now it's on the agenda.
All right.
Bueller?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry I did not get back to anybody. I actually thought that was coming out of the business office or central office. That was pertaining to the insurance component, I believe. I was concerned that they were going to come onto the district property and not have the proper insurance, but that has all been resolved as the attachment to the agenda shows at this point.
The agenda was light going on them, John.
So yeah, and that was not something that was brought to my attention, but in all honesty, you know, we have two very, very well equipped and capable district electricians to run a little bit of direct burial wire, and an indoor outdoor floodlight really should not be that big of a deal. We have power in that general area already, so we can make that work, you know, at very, very minimal cost.
All right. We have the energy performance contract with some company.
Correct.
That was before me, and you have a guy going around our school district turning off light switches. But now we're gonna have this light on all the time. So what is that guy doing?
So we have, I mean, there's two separate things going on there. There is an energy management agreement that the district is involved with. He's the one who identifies utility usage that should be streamlined or could be streamlined. He makes recommendations, and depending on that recommendation, we adopt it accordingly. This, I would recommend that we probably keep it lit while the building is open. I wouldn't recommend that we have it running all night, similar to the security lights we have running around the track in previous years. You know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, I think would be more than reasonable That would be when the majority of the people would be in and out of the high school and would be able to appreciate it. And then we turn it off at that point. Totally up to the Board of Ed, obviously.
I was just curious as to how this relates to our energy performance stuff. Let me just pass the agenda.
Yeah, so there are, like I said, there are two different pieces. So the energy performance contract, what they're going to do is they're going to come in and replace all the LED fixtures, all the fixtures throughout the district and make them LED. They're going to be adding solar throughout the district. They're going to be addressing some boilers and some mechanical equipment in the district that is, that is drawing a lot of energy and everything else. One light, I did the calculations a couple of years ago for the security lights relating to the turf field, and to run those security lights for the night was about $8. I think the draw for this will be measured in pennies. So it's really dependent upon whether or not and that's not part of the proposal from what I understand. It's something that the high school is going to request afterwards. If you're concerned about the cost, I can gather the expenses and present that as a separate thing before we install anything, but it would be separate to the signage that they're proposing anyway.
Okay, thank you, John. The next thing is the, yeah, I got nothing. I'm good for the rest. I don't know whose music that is, but I'm good. I have no more questions. Anyone else?
Sorry, that's my daughter playing the piano. I'm gonna mute. But no, I don't have any questions.
Okay, no one else? Does anyone else have any questions?
If no,
Nope,
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
What are the numbers?
I
I'm not-
emailed a lot of my questions already to Linda and the rest of the board, and I think they're going to be answered, and those two we could probably get on the docs. But we do have to, we're gonna do the public's questions now.
No, not yet, Jackie. We're still doing the consent agenda. Jesse, what items are those 2 through what?
2 through 12.
Okay, so I need a motion and a second to accept items 2 through 12 on the consent agenda.
You have the motion on the table. You just need all in favor.
All in favor. Thank you, Mylene. I always
All-
forget.
Aye.
aye.
Jackie? Okay, I don't have the agenda in front of me. What's the next one? What's the next item on the list? Mylene, do you know?
Yes, it is. Hold on. The new discussion items. The first item is facility use.
Okay, so we're up to the discussion items?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we can just go with that. Linda, you're up now. And I can mute again so I can open the other screen to see what we're up to.
Okay, so this is really a board discussion. In policy 1500, which is public use of facilities, it clearly states that the board reserves the discretion to deny use of district facilities described above or to terminate use of district facilities if an organization assigns or transfers the district facility use by the permitted user to another individual, group, or organization, or that they are allowed use for non-disclosed and authorized use of individuals, groups, of organizations not expressly identified on the application for use of the district facility.
I think in order for us to discuss it, you're going to have to start off and explain what happened.
Sure. So the weekend of October 10th and 11th, there was application by multiple groups to use the Ronkonkoma Middle School athletic spaces. 2 groups actually asked for the utilization, Connecticut Youth Soccer and St. Joseph's CYO. Those applications were approved. They were approved for a limited amount of folks. It turns out that St. Joseph's CYO did not use the fields that weekend at all. The Connecticut Youth Soccer Association actually asked for the expected attendance of about 35 people on one of the fields and 60 people on the other fields from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the afternoon. What commenced on those fields was another organization, the East Islip Soccer Club, held a tournament and utilized our fields from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. They scheduled approximately over 100 games to be utilized on those fields, of which approximately 12 of those games had our kids involved. So this was brought to my attention by the community because they were not happy with the amount of folks that were on the fields. There was calls about the garbage overflowing. There were calls about the fire lanes being blocked by folks that were parking there. There were calls about people not completely wearing masks the whole time that they were on, and that there were not appropriate social distancing. So a few weeks ago, actually, I guess a month and a half ago now, the board had allowed our external organizations to reapply for use of the fields so that our community could use them to give our kids, the respite from having been inside for so long. And the board asked that each organization come up with us a safety plan. So I did. Mr. Mallory spoke with the president of Connecticut Youth Soccer, describing the fact that we had seen many of these violations on video. And at that time still, it was not told to us that the fields were not being used by solely our organization, nor was there any application to say, can another organization utilize our fields? Even if they followed a safety plan, it was never actually applied for that reason. So at this point, the board can determine whether or not there has been a letter that was sent to the Connecticut Youth Soccer League because of the violations of their safety plan. But then it came to light that it was not just the Connecticut Youth Soccer League. It was actually teams from Massapequa and Smithtown and East Islip, Village of the Branch, Merrick, East Coast. I'm not sure where they hail from. East Islip. So there were West Islip, Hauppauge. There were folks, Sachem, Lysa, which I believe is Longwood.
Okay, so Linda, so you want the board to vote on whether we're going to suspend the permit or not?
It is your policy to decide whether or not you want to.
So Lee, you're going to abstain from this because you violated that in executive session last week, right?
No, I was the one that
Yes, but you also went into my face without a mask on, and then you went up to like a foot away from my lip
Listen,
without
I
your
see
mask
you
on.
all over without a
Right,
mask on, in groups of friends.
No, you don't see me at
lady.
all. You don't see me at
Let's-
all because I'm only with one other person. So
All
Lee,
right,
you went
let's
into
get back
executive
to-
session
All
without
right,
a
you wanna-
mask on up to Mylin, right? So you're going to
All right,
abstain
let's
from
get
this
back
vote,
to
aren't
what's
you?
going on?
No,
Eileen
Jackie,
and Lee,
Jackie, I'm
please.
speaking. Jackie,
Well,
I'm speaking.
I
I
understand.
want to make
but
sure that
listen,
Lee is going to abstain from this vote because she violated it in exec session, which is why we're doing Zoom today, because Lee does not know how to keep her mask on and not go a foot from someone's face and yell at them. So I want to make sure that Lee's going to abstain from this vote.
No, I'm
All
not
right.
abstaining from this vote. I was accosted
All right, well, I would
Oh,
by
like
you,
to.
Eileen.
You ran at Eileen and
I was
Mylene.
accosted
So you
by
accosted
you.
us. Oh,
All right,
Lee,
both of
Lee,
you. I know.
I have it,
Lee,
it's documented.
Lee,
I document
you went after
everything.
Mylene. You were in her face. I almost called security, Lee. You
All right,
were
listen.
spitting in her face.
You're a liar.
Stop it.
All right, Eileen,
Lee, do not
enough.
call me a liar when you're
Eileen,
Mylene. Help me out here.
please. Eileen, let
Eileen,
me
All
talk.
right,
why
at
don't you
this
mute?
moment-
Lee,
Eileen,
you were in my face, less than a foot away from my
Thank you,
face,
Mylene.
without a mask.
Because you're
You
hiring
came
your
aggre- you
friends.
came
All
at
right,
me
both of
You
you.
are
aggressively,
hiring your
and
friends,
you were
Mylene.
angry. You were
Mylene.
angry, and that is
Mylene,
why
you're
we
hiring
had
your
the Zoom
friends.
meeting
All right,
today.
Jesse, mute
You
everybody.
violated not
People
only
don't
the
wanna
mask
hear
law,
this.
you
Mylene,
violated
People
the
don't
state.
you're
wanna hear
hiring your
this.
friends. That's why you got a
Jesse,
three-person
no one
All
vote.
can hear
right.
anyone.
Person vote.
Eileen,
I just muted everyone. Per Eileen.
okay, Jesse, please let me talk now because I'm gonna get it all so they all calm down.
No.
Eileen, I understand what you're saying. Please let me talk. I understand what you're saying. You're not wrong. Mylin, you're not wrong. Lee, what you did in executive was wrong. The right thing to do, because we're all adults, is apologize. Trust me when I tell you, I did not move out of my seat, but you put me in a very bad position. Okay, I do not want to have to act. And
Okay.
I don't want to have to get security or anything like that. It was uncalled for, no purpose. I understand you're angry. And you have a right to your opinion.
I have a right to be angry because I care about Connecticut.
Okay,
and
but
you guys
Lee,
were forcing a teacher into an AP position.
I'm
speaking.
talking.
Lee, Jackie's
Let
speaking.
me finish, and then you're welcome to talk
Okay,
like adults.
thank you.
Let's all
Thank
act
you.
like adults. I don't want to, I'm not trying to be rude, okay? But it was the most unprofessional scene I have ever seen in the history
Your
of my
entire
life.
life.
Okay, no, it has. Because we're adult women, okay? We're adult women. We're not children. Let's not act like children, please. Our community deserves better, and they don't want to hear this. And I don't blame them, because I don't want to hear this, okay? We have bigger problems in our district that we have to work together and fix, if for nothing else, for the kids. Now, I was going to wait till the end to say this, but I'm going to say it right now because I think it'll count right now more, okay? The children in this district, the students, have shown more
so much
maturity.
more.
Have shown more maturity.
Lee, let Jackie speak. She's got the floor.
Let me talk. They have showed more maturity and resilience, and they are the true unsung heroes. Not us, not admin, not anybody. I'm telling you all right now, it is the students who are not complaining, as I'm hearing from many people. The students who are wearing masks and not arguing with people, not fighting in hallways. The children, the students who are doing everything in their power to just go to school. They're just struggling. The ones that are half in school and half not on hybrid, they're doing everything they can because they want to get back to school. Okay, the majority want to be back to school. They are the unsung heroes. They are my hero and they should be yours. And that's why we're all here. I don't do this. I don't take time away from my children.
Here, Jackie.
Or to anybody else for this. I do this for them. I do this to be a voice for parents, the community, and the students. And I would like it if everybody put away their anger, put it in your pocket right now, turn the page, because yes, something happened that shouldn't have. We're back on Zoom. I don't want to be on Zoom again. I hate this, just so you know. I like in person, but I understand why today is why it is. But the next one I'd like to do in person if possible. And Lee, I understand you're angry, but there is never a good reason, never to put anybody else at risk, never, and to get in anyone's face, ever. There's really not.
Can I have my?
No, Lee, Jackie is speaking, Lee.
Okay.
Hold on. Coming from me, who has people who know me are probably laughing at home because I have a hot temper, a hot Italian temper. For me to say this, okay? I'm saying this because I actually like all of you. I don't dislike any of you. And Lee, you know that because I even texted you after. I said, it's not important. We got to turn the page. Let's do what's right for Connecticut. We don't have to agree. And as professional women, you're not going to always agree. I don't always agree with Eileen. I don't always agree with you, Lee. I don't always agree with you, Mylin. I don't agree with everyone. I agree with you when I'm on the same, hey, this is the same thing that I agree with or that I'm for. But I'm not with any one person or team or anything like that. So let's all just do the right thing for the students, the true unsung heroes in what's been going on. They really are. Let's rise up to how they're acting.
Okay, now can I have my 5 minutes of fame?
Lee, as long as you don't go on and on about a rant, otherwise I will.
There is no rant.
Lee,
here we go.
Be adults and do the right thing here.
Okay, I'll just
start
start with.
Jesse mute you.
I'll just start where I'll just start this. We're talking about masks, and I did a terrible thing. I walk into a meeting and I was accosted by.
No, Lee, there we go. You are
explaining what happened.
Lee, you are giving your version of the event.
No, I'm giving the truth because Jackie heard the truth.
You asked to have the whole meeting restarted. So don't.
Okay,
go
then
because
I'll
you
start
were not-
backwards.
I said, no, we were listening to the lawyer finish speaking.
You
Lee,
said
it's
you said it's none of your
inappropriate. If you want
business
to do this, I'll keep talking over you because Lee, you're not right. And you're not
because
gonna
you
do
don't
this in
want to
public.
hear it.
You're not
All
going to
right,
get on your
ladies,
platform and
Eileen,
lie, Lee.
Eileen,
It's
I'm not
gonna
arguing,
happen.
she
be the
is.
person.
Lee Kennedy,
Let's be
it is
the
not
bigger
going to happen.
person.
You are not going to lie about this. I did not accost you.
Yes, you did.
I was very calm when I
No,
told you.
You said it's
Lee,
none of
you
my
were late
business.
to the meeting. You were
It's none of
late
my
to the
business.
meeting, and you were going to
Eileen,
let the lawyer speak.
Eileen,
No, it's not what
Eileen,
you said.
sat
do
down.
not listen to anything I just said. Okay,
Eileen's
there are
not.
Okay,
students
we're
that
gonna move on
watch
for
this.
this. All
There are
right, we're gonna
students
move
that
on
watch
for this
this.
conversation.
That's because you don't want to hear me talk.
Lee, we're gonna move on for this.
You don't want the
conversation because You're
truth.
gonna lie about it. And then
No,
you're
I'm
gonna say
not.
I'm
You
lying
don't want
about
the
it
truth.
When I have
When you
six
scream
other
the way
people
you
in the
are,
room.
you're trying to
Lee,
cover up.
You
Eileen.
are making things up.
No,
and I
I'm
will
not.
have it. Lee,
No,
it's
I'm not.
executive session. We will not speak about it now, Lee. It will
I
be
know you
over.
won't.
We
I
are
know.
going to move on. You can
Oh,
go on
wait,
Facebook
I'm
and
going.
post whatever
I'm
you
moving
want.
on.
This is
I'm
not
moving.
the proper forum for your
I'm not
lies.
talking
It's not
about it.
going
It's
to happen.
over. It's
It is
over,
not
bro.
going to happen, Lee.
It's
You are
over.
lying. You went after me. I put my hand
You
up and said,
accosted
stop.
me. You
No,
verbally
Lee, I told you-
accosted me.
I told you.
Move on with
We
All
are
right,
after the
girls.
meeting. That's all
This
there
is
is.
embarrassing.
That's it.
I'm
Okay,
actually
this is
embarrassed
embarrassing.
for
I'm
both
done.
of you. Enough.
The next discussion, what is the discussion about? It is about the field usage. So
Yes,
what are we
that's
going
what I
to do
wanted
about
to
the field
talk
usage?
about.
We
I'm
are going
talking
to talk about the field
usage.
usage only, Lee.
That's
We
all
are
I'm
going
going
to
to talk
decide
about.
whether to allow
Listen,
the field usage or
Eileen,
not.
Eileen, that's all I'm
Jesse,
talking
please listen to
about.
her because
You
I'm trying to
proved
speak
you
and they
proved I
won't
was
let-
right already.
Lee, you
And
don't have the floor, Lee.
I
You do
do.
not have the floor right now.
We're
Lee,
talking
you do
about
not-
code.
Jesse, please mute her again, please. Thank you. The vote on the floor right now, the discussion is whether or not to pull the permit for CYSL. That's the only discussion that we will be having at this moment.
Can
That's
I
what
speak? Can I speak about it?
Only about CYSL,
I
yes.
am.
That's what I
Okay,
wanted to
I
talk
sent an
about.
email.
No, Lee, you were talking about being
I-
accosted in executive.
I
Stop it.
sent an email. I'm sure you all got it. Yes. I sent an email. Linda, you guys all got it? Anybody?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys got it. All right, I sent an email in regards. This doesn't have to be an hour talking about field usage. It's a simple thing is either you want to pull the permit or we do the right thing, which in my opinion is you give a warning. You say, you give a slap on the wrist and say, we're not, right now during COVID times, we are not going to sublease these fields at all, or you will have your permit pulled. That's it. They get their warning, they get their one chance, and then that's it. You do realize that the sporting seasons are over in 2 weeks.
Okay, can I think I brought this up at the last meeting, executive session, based on a parent talking about it, and you were at that game. Was that the same sports game? Jackie?
Yes, Lee, I was there, and I'm the one that said that, wow, they had people walking around like the mask police. I think I was the one that actually said, if you don't believe me, check the cameras.
Yes, you did say that, but I had heard, and this woman that wrote the letter and spoke to everyone else saying these kids were running around. Now I need to ask Linda, if our kids got COVID, what would happen differently? Because there were so many kids from so many different areas there.
Oh, it would be nearly impossible to contact trace. That's really part of the.
Okay, so
That what would have happened in the schools, in our schools, if that would have happened?
Well, we wouldn't even know, to be honest with you, Lee.
but there's
If
an
someone-
if there. We're talking about the field usage that happened. The
Yes.
item on the table
See, here's
is.
the problem.
Wait,
We're all
wait,
saying-
Jackie, let me finish what I'm saying, please.
Go ahead.
The item on the table is whether or not we want to pull their permit. That's the discussion. Not if, not when, not what happened, what if. We're not doing that. What happened, happened, and we're deciding now as a board if we want to vote to pull their permit or not. That's the bottom line. It doesn't have to go into all these what ifs, because we can do what ifs forever. What ifs didn't happen. What happened was what happened, and that's what the board has to decide right now. Do we want to put a motion on the table to pull their permit or not?
I
I
would
do
put
not want to pull a permit. I do not want to pull a permit over an incident that, like I said, I happen to have been there. And I told you all that there were people walking around like the mask police. And I do not think with the 2 weeks to go that you should take these young children out of sports and say they can't use our fields because an adult or adults maybe had made a wrong decision, or at the time thought it was a good decision, or nobody can say really, other than we're looking at the amount of cars that were there.
All right,
I said
Jackie, I'm sorry.
It's only supposed to be
Wait,
two
wait
people.
1 second, Lee. Jackie, I'm sorry to cut you off. So your vote is to not pull the permit.
I'm not for pulling
Okay.
permits. 2
Next,
weeks ago.
Lee, is your vote to pull the permit or not?
Yeah, pull a permit.
Okay, Mylin, pull the permit or no?
I just want to just give like 2 minutes on this or 1 minute on
Absolutely.
this.
Everybody else have their 2 minutes. You can have your 2 minutes.
Now,
Someone else made a lot of, excuse me, Marlon, let me just say this one thing. You're missing the point. There are a lot of people that made money off of our school fields.
Lee?
A lot of people made a
Lee,
lot of money
you
off
had
of our
like
school
10 minutes
fields.
now, Lee. Let Mylin.
Now,
have
I'd
her
like
2 minutes.
Linda to
Lee,
just
let
add to that.
Mylin has the floor, Lee. Mylin has the floor now. Let her have her 2 minutes, please.
Can you please ask Linda to add to that? How much money these people make?
Lee,
on our
allow
fields?
Mylin to have her 2 minutes, please. Now, thank you.
so I'm not going to mention the organizations by name, but I'm just going to just put a hypothetical name out there. Emily. So Emily took out a permit with the Connecticut board, a school, Connecticut district, to use the field for soccer. And they were saying that our students, our residents would be able to use our fields. I was under the impression that this was going to service our children only. As this kind of went on, I don't know this, for hearing what Linda is saying on this, that they were a caveat or a vehicle for other organizations to use our field. So using these other organizations, using our field funding, funneling through this one applicant, was that also our children using the field? So say if it was Sachem, was it only Sachem children using our fields? And I'm not looking to in any way to not have children play on our fields, but I have to look out primarily for Connecticut kids. I mean, that's what I'm here for. That's my number one goal, is to protect our community and protect our children. I felt by this permit being sort of used in other ways to allow other organizations to come in was somewhat an abuse, or abuse is a strong word. It was almost a little bit of taking advantage of what it was really entailed for, and that was for Connecticut kids, our local kids playing on our field. So Linda, can you answer me the question? Were there teams playing on this field that were not Connecticut children?
Yes, there were 106 games scheduled for the Ronkonkoma Fields over the course of 2 days. Of those 106 games, only 12 games had Connecticut soccer teams as part of them.
Linda, can you also let them know that each game is only 1 hour? So people understand that people were coming and going. At no time was there thousands of people on the fields.
Oh, sure. No, there was actually, I believe I'm looking at the tournament schedule right now. Some of the games were 40 minutes, some of the games were 50 minutes, and some of the games were 60 minutes. But over the course of the 5 different fields that we have down there, they had scheduled 106 games over 2 days. So the fields were used every hour from 8 a.m. until.
Okay. So
wait. So okay, I just want to finish. So Linda, when they applied for the permit and they gave you their COVID plan, in their COVID plan, did it talk about allowing outside organizations to use our fields?
Well, because they do have travel teams, they sometimes have, they're competing against teams from other organizations. I don't actually, do I have the permit question in front of me? I do. Give me 1 second to go through
So
it.
I understand Connecticut is going to play Sachem, they're gonna play Sayville, they're gonna play
Right.
Patrick. I completely understand that. Of course, that's how you have a game. That's how you compete.
Right.
My question is, again, I'm just using different, I'm not saying that they did, but did Patchogue say group come in and play a Sachem group? That's really where my
Yeah. Oh,
question
yes.
is.
Again, Mylan, there were 106 games scheduled for those 2 days, and only 12 of those games involved Connecticut soccer kids. All the other 94 games had no Connecticut kids at all.
Okay, so that's where honestly I have to take issue with. I was under the impression that in order to use our field, it was to benefit our community and our community only. Again,
Mylin, can I just tell you something? Just so that you know, out of all those games, several of Connecticut's teams from the Connecticut League, which are all Connecticut kids, won championships. It was all over social media. We had several teams of them that won, which means that, yes, Sachem played Patchogue, and let's say the winner played Connecticut. Connecticut came out with several championships that day. Just so you got, Sunday, I believe it was.
Well, the
Linda,
thing is,
can you-
okay, if that
All
was the platform, then maybe the person who took out the permit or the building use should have given a heads up to Linda, John Allen, or anybody in administration to say that this was going to be taking place this weekend. You know, it was with the premise of when they took out the permit that it was going to be strictly for our children. So to come to hear after the fact that it didn't entirely benefit our children, and according to what Linda is saying, 12 games out of 100 games that our children played at, that's a significant number of participation that our children were not involved in. So listen, I'm not looking to pull anybody's permit, but I think there should be a strong warning and a conversation had with any organization that's going to, you know, sublease or sublet our grounds in that capacity. Again, you don't want that to ever, even with COVID not taking place, you never want a person who's taking out a building use to sublet it to somebody else. And if that's going to be the case, then they need to be transparent about it. I'm just asking for transparency. You know, ultimately, we are responsible for Connecticut kids. I'm not responsible for Sachem kids or Patchogue kids. I'm responsible for Connecticut kids. And I think there should have been some transparency when it came to allowing that platform.
Okay.
Can I
so
ask
Wait,
Linda-
isn't there?
One more question?
wait, Jackie and
Right.
Mylin, wait 1 second. There's a motion on the table to either pull their permit or not. Jackie voted no. Lee voted yes. Mylin, what is your vote?
I don't want to hurt the children. I would just suggest that there be a strong warning that when we lease, when we supply a building, when you issue a building use
Permit.
that it's strictly for what it entails and what it says on the paperwork.
Okay, so that's their first warning. The second warning will take the matter up again. Mark,
Yeah.
what is your vote or your comment on this? It's your floor now.
I agree with everything Mylin said, but you know what? The kids come first, so I want the kids to be able to play, but I have to say this. If this happens again from any other sport or anybody, this is the warning for everybody. You can't use the fields anymore.
Perfect.
Because our kids come first, and that's the way it is right now due to the circumstances of what we're dealing with. Because everybody comes to these fields and they know their risk and they expect only Connecticut to be there. So it's easier for us to handle in the right manner, which Linda is telling us with this proper protocol. I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable. So if you do come use our fields, you know it's at your own risk no matter what. But we need to follow proper protocol. And if it's not, they're not to use it. And everybody had a gain. There's reasons why people did this. And that's what Lee was trying to say. Stop worrying about yourself right now. Worry about the kids. That's it. So I'm voting no, but with a strong, it can't happen again.
I agree with Mark. That's 3 votes for a strong no. Motion is passed. Next discussion. What's up next, Linda?
Wait, I'm
Um,
sorry.
Can I,
Wait.
Linda, ask one question? It has nothing to do
No,
with,
Linda, no,
the vote.
but no, Lee, the vote is over.
I know, it has
Lee,
nothing to do with the
Lee,
vote. The vote is
We're
over.
moving on. Stop. Lee,
Eileen.
just
Let her
stop.
answer ask a question.
Hey,
Jesus. When any team, anywhere anything on our fields, what is the limit? Is the rule just two people to come watch a game? Is it a family, two people, 5 kids to come watch a game?
No,
Mom
it's
and
two, it's
grandma?
two
What is the
spectators.
rule?
2 spectators per player.
2 spectators.
Oh,
meaning
Linda, that's
mom-
one. Please
ahead.
make sure if this weekend they start to do that they're removed. I mean, we need. How'd you find out about how many teams and all the scheduling? You would probably see something for this weekend. If they plan on doing that again this weekend, they can't use the fields.
I mean, they're using,
So
I
that's
mean, I
one-
just want to know, but no, the rule of thumb is I need to hear from Linda because you hear one
You
thing.
hear me on that?
Yes, I understand.
Yes.
Because
rule
if you
of thumb is-
can out, if they're using the fields again with Patchogue playing Sachem and this one playing that one, no, it's our kids using the fields.
Got it.
Even if our kids use the field, what's the rule? That's all. I just
The,
wanna know.
the rule in COVID is 2 spectators maximum per player.
So no.
Lee, that's
no-
what people had. That's what people were having. 2 people. Most people have a parent and a kid or 2 parents. You weren't seeing, that wasn't the issue. Like I said to you, the issue is
just
people
ask the
come in
question.
separate cars.
we're discussing this more. The vote already happened.
I
Next
was-
discussion. No, the floor is closed. Next discussion. That's it. Next discussion. We voted. They're going to continue to do what their permit allows them to do. And if not, that's it. We pull it. Done. Next discussion.
Next discussion is just boards. If the board has any questions we didn't cover. And then it would be public comment.
Okay. So we'll start with Mark. Why don't you start? Because you're the quickest. I don't have any questions.
No, I just want everybody. This was embarrassing tonight. It's got to stop. That's all I have to say.
I agree
I'm
with you, Mark.
there. Next is Lee. We'll let you
I
go.
agree with Mark.
Lee, if you get into anything that is not public consumption, I'm going to cut you off. I'm telling you that right now.
I just said all I was going to say. I said, I agree with Mark. That's
Oh,
all.
good. So do I.
I agree with
So
Mark.
We agree. We agree, Lee. Isn't that nice? Okay, Mylin, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have a couple if you don't mind.
Not at
the
all.
fir-
Go ahead. And then Jackie, you're up. So stay on there.
Okay, so my first question is about the Chromebooks. Dean, could you just give an update on the status of the Chromebooks?
Yes, so we had a conversation with the vendor yesterday, and I asked our CJ Rung, which is our tech specialist as well, who had the vendor put it in writing, and I'll be sending it to the board. We are still waiting for the Chromebooks, and the new anticipated arrival is late November.
It was expected mid-October originally, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
we have been in contact with them each week, and it seems to be a supply chain issue, and it's outlined in the memo that I will send you tomorrow.
Okay. Linda, I believe this question may be for you. So if a teacher is sent out on quarantine, so if the school makes a suggestion for a teacher to go out and quarantine, what is the responsibility of the teacher in regards to virtual learning and virtual teaching?
That's actually a Dean question as well, so I'm going to throw it his way.
So if a teacher is placed on quarantine either by the district or by the Suffolk County Department of Health, it was worked out with the CTA that the first day the teacher will post an assignment for each of the classes or classes that they are responsible for that day. And then the second day they would begin to provide synchronous instruction.
So what happens if a teacher places themselves on quarantine?
What do you mean by that, Mylin?
Is that an option that a teacher would say, I was in contact with a family member who has COVID, I'm going to quarantine?
That's only, the quarantine is only done by a family physician or the Suffolk County Department of Health. So you're not, if someone has been contact traced, then we would know from the Suffolk County Department of Health or from that person's physician that they were quarantining for that reason. You can't just put yourself on quarantine. You have to
So
have a note.
So you would have to you would need a note to quarantine. So if I was in contact with you, Linda, you had COVID, I don't have to quarantine myself, even though that you tested positive?
No, because people now are, the way the contact tracing works is the Suffolk County Department of Health looks back 48 hours, determines the length of the contact, the proximity of the contact, whether or not masks were worn or are not worn. And Suffolk County Department of Health determines who needs to be quarantined. So just because you've been in a quick contact with someone who potentially has COVID, they only look back 48 hours from either the beginning of the symptoms or the day that the test came back, the day that the test happened and then came back positive. So for example, if tonight someone got a test because they weren't feeling well, and we would look back 48 hours to see who was around that person with the Suffolk County Department of Health. They would ask us a whole bunch of questions as to, were they masked? How long were they together? Were you within 6 foot? Were social distancing maintained? What kind of filtration system was around when you were together? Were you talking? Were you singing? Were you running? They ask all these questions, and then they determine who needs to quarantine and who doesn't. It's not as black and white as I was near someone, so I need to quarantine. There's many more factors that are looked at before they determine that.
So is it possible that you can send the parents and the community just an idea or just a scope of what it takes to be placed on a quarantine? What does it actually mean? What is the tracking, the tracing? So that parents get an understanding of why somebody was quarantined but this person wasn't quarantined, because I think there seems to be some a misunderstanding of that whole process.
I can certainly do that, Mylin. To be honest with you, I'd already drafted something. Gail and I were going back and forth, Mrs. Santo and I were going back and forth on what that process should look like, because I think people don't understand the depth of information that the Suffolk County Department of Health asks us for. So we already have that in draft form, and I can certainly even explain what the point system is and everything. So we've already begun to draft that. That should go out sometime this week to the community.
That'd be great. And also too, if we can maybe put, especially on the secondary level, is to put the sanitizing wipes when children enter their classrooms. I think that they will feel a little bit more comfortable to say, grab one and just be a little, just feeling a little bit more confident in just wiping down their space, and I think it'd be good. I think it would also help lessen the spread, so they feel that it's just like if you walk into BJ's or Costco, it's right there. You grab one and you just automatically you wipe down your cart, you wipe everything down. It's just sort of like a habit. So we can start maybe putting that in place. That will also maybe help too with your contact tracing, because we could also say the wipes are available, so many students do grab the wipes, so many students do wipe their surfaces, and again I think it's just good hygiene practice for our students to keep them safe as well. My last question is,
Mylin, can I just interrupt you for a second? We've already begun that. You had suggested that yesterday, and I put out a memo to the principals of the secondary campuses as well as the custodial staff to begin that process of moving things. So I think maybe some students already saw that happen today.
Great, because I think again it will just make kids feel a little more proactive and about their surroundings. And my last question is, I know I'm going to be a pain in the butt about this one. Any status on the virtual 3D table? I'm very excited about it. Is the table being used, and what's the status on that?
So I know, obviously in the spring, we were supposed to have several trainings, which were obviously canceled. We did have a rescheduled date for November 3rd. I'm not sure if that is going to take place, but I will have Dr. Losing provide a detailed update to the board and possibly a presentation in the near future of the.
How long have we had
the
that table now, Dean? Dean, how long have we had that table?
So Dean was actually out when we got it. It was we received it in March of last year.
Okay. All right. That's all. So it's been over a year.
No, March of last year, and we were closed for 4 months.
March of
after
this
that.
year or last year? This is
March of
2020.
March of 2020, last school year.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank
Mark,
you,
do
Eileen. I don't have any further
now?
questions.
Mark, do you have any questions? Mark?
No, I'm good. I was on mute, sorry.
Okay, and I have no
I
questions.
have questions, Eileen.
All right, Jackie, you're up.
I had emailed you guys a bunch of questions. I don't know if you guys have it on you or if you guys have any of the answers, because some of the emails weren't answered. I know what my Lynn just had asked. I had asked as well when it came to the Chromebooks. Has anybody looked into, Dean, have you looked into trying a different manufacturer? I know that other school districts have gotten theirs sooner. And we have kids, I know that I wrote the email and in it I wrote that it's unacceptable that kids have kids are using their cell phones, and that's just unacceptable. We have to get them some sort of, so were we able to take some of the computers back and or Chromebooks we had at the elementary level and give them out to the secondary level?
Yes, we'll be making those phone calls starting on Monday and arranging for students to start picking up some of those Chromebooks that we were able to take back from the elementary students.
How many were you guys able to retrieve?
I think right now we are able to repurpose close to 290.
Oh, perfect. That's good. Okay, good. Something.
You know,
right
we went through a bid process to find this vendor. It's CWDG. It's a very reputable vendor. I think the challenge is that with the shutdown, there are parts and supplies that are needed for the Chromebooks that they can't access, and that's why there is a delay. There are school districts that have received them. Their orders were placed before ours, and it's kind of like a waiting game at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. That was one of the questions. One of the other questions is, did we look into how we're going to, actually, I don't think I can't ask this in public. It's a personnel question, so I'll save that. The other one was, what are we doing right now in regards to, are we going to look into closing for a day to do a cleaning? I know, Linda, you had mentioned something about in November. Was that discussed at all?
We were discussing, and we haven't fully fleshed it out, potentially having a day where we did an entire virtual day. It really wasn't for cleaning as much as it was for trying to work out any of the bugs that might happen. So we were looking at potentially, and I would have the board vote on this at the next meeting, but we were looking at potentially doing the Monday after Thanksgiving. So November 30th, I believe the date is, to do a full virtual day to kind of do a dry run. So that way, when and if it's really if and when we would have to do some kind of a closure, we would have been able to work out the bugs a little bit. So we would have everybody be home, have everybody work from home, and see how it works, and then be able to debrief that with our parents and our staff and our administration and our teachers, and kind of work out any of the bugs that we saw on that day. So we were talking about that with the administrative team, and we would bring a formal presentation to the board to vote on for next time, so that we would let the community know that they were going to have to either arrange childcare or something to be home on that day if the board decides that that's something that you're interested in.
Perfect. Okay. And thank you. And the other thing was, what exactly are we doing in regards to the honor societies? I know that there was some question about the high school level. If there was something along the lines of if the kids had to, they had to parents were talking about having to send in all their stuff again a second time. And I just wanted to make sure that that went on record so parents that were asking know the answer.
So we did, I did ask that, the last time that I was able to speak with the board and the community, I did ask for people to go to the source. So I know that there were some people who emailed the board asking questions, but really we should ask those folks to email Mrs. Cheryl Sosa and Mr. Robert Batchison, who are the advisors of that National Honor Society. I think there was some miscommunication because the only students who were actually accepted in the spring were the students who were rising seniors. So our rising juniors, the process was not completed for them. So there was pieces missing in certain people's portfolios. But I think really what needs to happen is if a parent has a question on whether things were originally put in and now they can't find them or they weren't put in and they need to do them again, should really have that individual question go to Mrs. Sosa and Mr. Batchison so they can have it answered for their child.
Thank you. And the last thing was, I wanted to know about what we're doing with the students that have IEPs, 504s, our special ed community. Are we trying to get those kids when the time comes back first to the 5 days? Are we looking to try to get the children that are most at risk to fall behind back to school on a full-time basis? And if so, what would our timeline look like?
So in the world of great minds think alike, Jackie, I actually emailed Dr. Hansa Diamantis right now, who is our interim director of special education, saying, can we begin to look at reacclimating kids in 5 days a week that have IEPs? Now that our class sizes have settled down, we know exactly how many kids are each day hybrid to see if we can fit them in with appropriate social distancing. So that's a process that is just beginning. My timeline for that would be to get them in within the next month or so. And as long as we can socially distance them and make sure that they're going to be safe and physically safe so that we can get their education back to 5 days a week.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to know, because I know that those parents right now, I'm sure the days that the kids are home, it's probably, if I would imagine if it might be a little bit harder to try to help your children. I know for me, I had some issues doing 5th grade math tonight, so I can only imagine what some people are dealing with if you don't understand some of this stuff. It's not easy trying to help your children along on the days that they're home.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, is that the end of the discussions? Linda?
Yeah, it was your open time.
Perfect. So the next thing, Jesse, is the public comment. Did you, and I posted this in my own group on Facebook, you put a link on the board notice that when we do Zoom meetings, they will be emailed questions. When we do live meetings, then people can come in person and ask their questions. Never in the history of the 15 years that I've been going to board meetings have we had email questions during a live meeting, so that hasn't changed. But with COVID, because of Zoom meetings, we are now doing email questions. So Jesse, you did receive some emails. Can you read the questions? And again, I did say that those questions will be pulled out of the emails because some of the emails are 6 to 7 pages long, and we only need the questions answered, but the actual things will be posted online. Correct, Linda?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Jesse, you're up. Can you please read those questions for me?
Yeah. So
can I just interrupt Jesse for a second? We have answers to all these questions right now, Eileen. So would you like me to read them and answer them? Or do you want to read them and then we put the answers online?
How many questions are there?
There are 8 with multiple parts to one, but they are not long answers.
Okay, then let's do it and let's get it done with. And then you're also going to put it online for anyone that needs to see it after the meeting.
Okay,
correct?
So there was one question for elementary. The question is there a plan for 4th and 5th grade students to receive full day teacher instruction? Until we get the okay from the Suffolk County Department of Health or New York State, I know that there are districts who are bringing back classes full-time, who potentially didn't have their kids in the buildings full-time before, or were on a hybrid or something along those lines for the elementary. But right now, we cannot put 4th and 5th grade students into a full day teacher situation because we would not have appropriate social distancing. So at this time, we're continuing the current plan. Then the questions for the high school. There was a couple about the large number of teachers that were out and what the plan was. And I just have to say out loud that the dream team of clericals who exist in the front office of the high school, who worked from 4:45 a.m. through the remainder of the day to ensure that on one day over 183 sections were covered. The work that they did to make sure that not one student was without coverage of either a teacher. And I am extremely proud of the teachers who stepped up to cover those empty classes. But the clericals need to be, they are the unsung heroes in this situation. They worked, and it was just unbelievable. The well-oiled machine that made sure that every single class was covered. We had many teachers, obviously, who stepped up to cover. Some of them covered multiple classes. We had directors that stepped up to cover. We had administration that stepped up to cover. So I was very proud of how the Connecticut High School group came together to make sure that our kids were covered, and those sections were covered that day.
Weren't you teaching also, Linda?
I went and I offered myself to be a science teacher or any other teacher coverage that they needed, but they didn't take me up on it, and I was very jealous because I know Mr. Mallory actually got to teach in a phys ed section, and I wanted to, but they didn't take me up on it. But I'm available for them whenever they need me. So that's the answer to that. A parent asked, can students be permitted to sit in their vehicles instead of in the cafeteria or the gymnasium or the auditorium? No, that would just be, not only would that be a security concern, that would also be a concern with students being unsupervised during that period of time. Is it possible to be notified via Google Classroom the night before if a teacher will be absent the following day? Teachers can certainly post a message to their students that they will be out. What is the district doing to ensure teachers are comfortable in their workspace health-wise? So we're going to continue to follow the Suffolk County Department of Health Services guidelines. And I think sending home that email that Mylan was speaking of before, and we've already begun to draft, I think you'll see that the Suffolk County Department of Health is doing really an exhaustive discussion of each and every case, and every case is looked at individually and differently. And, just to go over again, the multiple layers of protection that we have in the building are over and above. And because of that, we've had very few people who needed to be quarantined. And I'm very proud of that, and proud of the fact that the district went out of its way and really spent money to keep people safe. We have the mask protocol, we have the social distancing protocol, we have the barriers. We also have portable barriers for teachers that are mobile that they can teach behind to ensure their personal safety. We've upgraded our filtration system to MERV 11. So all of these things were done with the express purpose of keeping people as healthy as possible while we're navigating the educational system during this COVID pandemic.
So Linda, can I just ask you one question about the barriers? And it seems to be a hot topic these days. Now, there's several concerns about the barriers, whether it's the glare, it's the fingerprints, it's not the sound, it acts as a sound barrier. Some kids feel that if they drag it around, it's potential for exposure for more contamination, things like that. Again, can you just reiterate, your thoughts on why the barriers were safer, a safer option and an added layer of protection? Because, some people are thrilled by it, but there's some that are not so thrilled by it. Again, especially on the middle school, you got some 6th graders that are, carrying these things around. How are the kids overall doing with this process?
I'll be honest with you, Mylan. Jackie said it really eloquently earlier. The kids are the unsung heroes here. I did not see one child at the high school the entire time I was there fidget with their mask, worry about, you know, carrying the barrier. It was just part of their protocol. They just picked up the barriers, they folded them up, they put them in their hands, they took their books in their other hands, and they went to the next class. I really didn't see, they're much more resilient than we give them credit for. And the high school changes, most kids change every period. Some kids are joint in some classes, and they're so they don't change every period, but there didn't seem to be one child who was struggling with it. Now at the middle school, they're a little bit smaller, the kids, but honestly, they move far less. So they're joint in their classes, they're cohorted in their classes, and they move far less. We don't really see the kids are more resilient than the parents are. Are they a little bit smeary? Yes. I've asked Mr. Allen to look and see if there are some kind of like a Windex wipe or something along those lines that we're allowed to provide. So if a child gets one in the morning that looks kind of spotty because of, you know, fingerprints, because we are unable to wipe them down every single day. We are spraying them and disinfecting them. But if a child gets one and they look through it and they think, I really can't see through this, we should see if we can provide some kind of like a Windex type of wipe to wipe that down. However, we do have hundreds of extra ones that if it's really something that it's too hard to see through, the teacher can call down and have another one replace that one. So that's one way that we can help the kids be able to see through them. Are they?
Linda, is there any way for us to, I'm sorry, is there any way for us to leave them and have them wiped down? I mean, I'm just saying it because I don't really understand the whole object of moving them class to class, other than I guess it's your germs on it because it's a spit guard of some kind. But
that's exactly why, Jackie, because
you're
breathing in that space.
Right. So here's the issue, though. You're breathing on the desk too. I mean, it's like a lot of different things going on here that I know that we can't, every single thing, we can't, there's no perfect real idea. It's kind of like what you just had said before. You're going to 4th and 5th graders. I understand that 4th and 5th grade parents are upset about it. I don't blame them. I think the teachers are doing a great job in trying to teach both of their one class at a different time. And I know we had spoken about live streaming it as well, but here's the issue. Next year, they go to middle school. I have a 5th grader, so I know I could say this too as a parent of it. What are the children going to be really as well prepared as kids 2 years ago? I mean, I think the teachers are doing a great job, but it's at the same time, there's no way to fully, when you're not with the kids all day, you're never going to get the same education. It's almost like if you had them home on hybrid, it would be the same thing, in my opinion, because it's not the same. So that's really, I guess, the issue. How far behind are these kids going to be, and how much leeway are they going to get if they get to middle school? Do you know what I'm saying? Because
I totally do.
I see as a parent, I see how behind my own child is from not being in school since March. And even though, we did all the stuff online like everybody else, it's not as easy as everybody thinks to get back into the flow of things when they are really behind in a lot of ways that I don't think everybody sees. So I think that's something we have to really look into. Is there any way that we could give these 4th and 5th grade teachers some extra added support? Do we have any way of, I mean, I don't even know if it's got, like you're saying, on a day when all these people could jump into help the high school, are there people who we could have periodically to go help the 4th and 5th grade teachers? Maybe, do something extra with the kids as an extra, as a teacher in the classroom with them. Or are we going to do the live streaming? And if we're going to do that, when is that going to get going?
So I'm going to ask Mr. Middleman to discuss a little bit of that.
So as far as the live streaming, we have had conversations with our building administrators. They have had conversations with some of their teachers. Some of the buildings don't feel that it would be a viable solution for them. We do have one building that is piloting it or will be piloting within the next couple of days. As far as supports, I have had Miss Rizzo as well and Mrs. Ronai going around and meeting with all the 4th grade and 5th grade teachers to discuss the science and social studies curriculum to see if there are any things that we can do with regards to both grading and the amount of topics that are covered and the amount of units that are covered. So we are having the conversations. We are looking at a variety of different solutions. It's a challenging thing, and it's not the most ideal situation that we're looking for. But we are open to other suggestions and feedback.
Well, Dean, let me ask you something. Now, I know when we discussed this in the past, it was either you or Linda. I know I spoke to one of you in regards to why we couldn't have the 4th and 5th graders be in a socially distanced classroom, just like the 3rd graders are, just like the 2nd graders are. I mean, we have elementary going full day. What would it take to try to do that, even if we had to utilize different spaces? And I wasn't sure if it was the teachers was the issue, we didn't have enough teachers, or if the issue was if we didn't have enough instructional staff, or if it was that if it was the actual social distancing. Because I know that some schools, we had said there was enough classrooms, but that the 2 big ones for the elementary would be difficult.
So there are enough instructional spaces. There are a couple buildings whose instructional spaces are not ideal, but doesn't mean that we can't still provide instruction in there. I think when it comes down to it, it comes down to staffing and having enough instructional staff to be able to cover those additional sections.
Okay, because like I said, I know that there are a lot of parents who, while they're extremely happy with the teachers that their children have, and they know they're going above and beyond, it's not really ideal for anyone, including the staff that's teaching. I mean, I can't imagine that this is easy, running from a classroom to another classroom, back and forth, or half the day and half the day. It just doesn't seem practical to do for the full year. I'm hopeful that by January we can come up with some better idea. I would love to have a better idea by November 1st, but if not, I'm hoping that if things settle down, we can come up with some other ideas.
Me too.
I'm gonna ask if all the emails were read.
No.
Okay, can you finish the emails, please?
Yes, ma'am.
It is public comment. It is their time, not ours. So, Linda, if you will please finish those.
Yes. If a teacher has to be quarantined, are they expected to provide lesson plans or teach virtually? Mr. Middleman already explained that. For the first day of quarantine, the teacher is expected to post an assignment for each class from the second day forward. The teacher will teach their assigned class sections remotely, synchronously. Can the morning announcements, high school announcements, be posted on Google Classroom? Mr. Moran has said that he will begin to do that. That's a great idea. Will there be upcoming events for the seniors? So high school administration again and the senior class advisors are looking to reschedule the senior brunch that was canceled last week. Hopefully they'll be doing that before Thanksgiving break, and then they will be working together to look at other things that they can do for the high school seniors moving forward. National Honor Society question was asked and answered already. And then when will other extracurricular clubs commence? I have already given to the board the proposals from the club advisors as to what kind of activities they would be planning, what virtual platforms they would utilize, the meeting dates and the times, and the board will be discussing that. And we will hopefully be able to put some more club advisors on the next board agenda. And that's it.
All righty. Since the board already had their time to speak, we are not speaking now, my board. And the public comment is now done. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting for tonight. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Eileen, don't kill me. I just wanted to piggyback on
Mylin.
The kids are the unsung heroes. I agree with her 100%. And yes, I'll take a motion.
Okay. Mylin says she motions. I need a second.
You got my second, Jackie.
All in favor? Eileen says aye.
Aye.
Aye, Jackie.
Lee and
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Stay safe and healthy all.
You too, Jackie. Bye-bye.